You are now listening to the Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks podcast, brought to you by Solid.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Building with AI Promises and Heartbreaks. Today, I have with me Meenal Iyer, the VP of Data at SurveyMonkey. Hello, Meenal. How are you?
I'm good, Yoni. I'm good. Excited to be here, and let me see what promises I can make and what hearts I can break. So, yeah, super excited to be here.
Love it. So, for the audience here, first of all, I consider Meenal a friend. We've known each other now for 2 years. As we started the journey at Solid, even in the earliest conversations, and we've been working together also in recent months even more closely. So I'm really, really excited to have Meenal here. Just as a quick introduction, Meenal is the Vice President of Data at SurveyMonkey. She leads the company's efforts across data analytics, data science, and AI ML, driving the transformation of SurveyMonkey into an intelligent enterprise. Her work has delivered measurable impact on revenue and operations, shaping everything from pipeline quality and customer retention to upsell opportunities and product roadmap decisions. With more than 25 years of experience spanning SaaS, financial services, travel, and retail, Meenal has built a proven track record of creating data-first organizations. Her expertise ranges from embedding AI and advanced analytics into enterprise workflows to establishing governance and ethics frameworks for responsible AI, to building innovation labs and data-driven playbooks that unlock new growth. She partners closely with C-suites and boards to turn insights into strategy. Meenal is recognized as one of the top 100 AI influencers of 2025. Meenal also advises venture capital firms and AI startups, helping shape the next generation of data and AI innovation. What an amazing person to have on this podcast that focuses on building with AI, isn't it?
Thank you so
Meenal,
much for that intro, Yoni. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thanks for coming here. So let's start. We're here to talk today a bit about your experience building with AI at SurveyMonkey, past experience, what worked, what didn't, and so forth. But let's start with maybe a bit of background. So when you started exploring AI at SurveyMonkey, what were you thinking about? What were your goals, or what were you trying to achieve?
Yeah, so to be very candid and honest, my journey with AI started a little in 2023, actually. So when in November of 22, ChatGPT came out, I started playing around with it, and I still hadn't thought about how AI would actually influence what we would be doing, and how it would change things for us. But then as 2023 rolled in and I started organizations seeing what they are doing, I realized that there was so much potential and opportunity for us to start taking and building and start thinking about how AI could influence. But again, the technology was relatively new, trust was yet to be built. And the fear was always there as to where to do it. But what I started doing is I started using it more as a thought leader in terms of, how I wanted to think about things, what I should be doing. And I realized that, and I use ChatGPT extensively, and I realized that, ChatGPT has a way of putting together content in a way that is very easily understandable, if you define like as to what is the audience that you want to present it to. So, I started drawing roadmaps out and putting those pictures on ChatGPT, and, ChatGPT kind of, put it out there for me. I suck at building presentations. I'm not a very creative person. And so for the longest time, I started using the application to say, okay, help me kind of put this into a visual and how would I do it? And so it helped with that. And I realized that it started filling a gap on things where I felt that, I had a little bit of weakness in. And I so used the product. It was more towards 2024 when I said, okay, it's time to now bring it in and integrate it within our ecosystem. And, what are the ways in which to do it? And I started taking classes. I started learning, everything there was to learn about the technology, what was available out there, just purely from a data standpoint, what was there. And things were at a very, very infantile stage. Still, right? People were still exploring. Again, I come back to the trust issue. There wasn't a lot of trust. And so, as I set to build my roadmap, I first figured, okay, the best thing I can do is start to upskill my team start to get them familiar with what AI has still before I start thinking about how am I going to exploit it. And the reason for that was to, bring them along with me on the journey of discovery and exploration so that we can all kind of ride this tide together. Towards the end of 24 is when things started becoming much, much more clearer to me. And I set up not only the AI Academy for my team to basically start learning together, but then also put together the initial roadmap of how I believe that AI could actually come in and influence. And so now we have a really solid roadmap, if I can use that pun. We have a really solid roadmap that we are executing on, and I'm very, very excited to share that a lot of it is slowly going into production. Folks have started seeing use of it. I'm starting to understand as to how best we can start capturing ROI out of these changes that we have made. And as promised, there were heartbreaks along the way, and we will obviously talk about that during the course of this conversation. But the journey has been very exciting. For me, it was relatively new. I started with it when the Gen AI craziness started. That's when I started my AI journey. Till before then, I hadn't paid much attention to it.
Yeah. Super interesting. Okay. So if I kind of walk through that, so 2023, you were experimenting with ChatGPT on your own. You were using it for your own needs, learning. It was augmenting you. By the way, I'm not a big fan of doing presentations. Like, I'm not good at it. And also, I don't like writing very long things. So ChatGPT augments me there because sometimes you need to write a 3-page document about something, and I give it like the synopsis or something short, and then it fixes it up for me, and then I review it. So I'm completely with you on that. So 2023, we're experimenting yourself with it, learning how to go through it. And then going into 2024, you thought, okay, there's potential for the world of data, and you made a really important choice of saying, okay, before I start building strategies, et cetera, I want my team to start leveraging Gen AI on their own and feeling it and learning from it, et cetera. So I think that's, first of all, an important learning here is getting the team to start feeling it with their hands and getting acquainted with what's possible, right? So that's I think a really important learning. And then once that happened, now you can start building your strategy with your team, right? So that's the right way to think about it.
Yep. Perfect. You summarized it really, really well. I know I took forever to say that, but yes, that was the summary of it.
Yes. No, it's great. Fantastic. Okay. So your team ramped up on it. When you were kind of thinking of, okay, where do we want to focus our efforts? How did it go? Was it, every person coming up with their own idea of where we should try to bring AI into data and analytics, or was it working together to select one? What was the process of that?
Yeah. So when I set out the strategy, I kind of had things in mind as to where I believe the opportunities existed. So as I set to build that out, I set out the framework for it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and we can talk through the roadmap itself at some point. But what happened is that once I did a mini hackathon within the team, so there was a mini AI hackathon that I did within the team, that's where the team realized that this extends so much beyond what my roadmap had. And so my roadmap, from what it started and now what it has evolved into, it has been a really good it's been a really, really good extension. So things that I had thought about, yes, they worked, but then putting them truly into action and then, assigning it to impact and use cases that exist within the organization, that started evolving as we did that first mini hackathon within the organization, and which we now do every month for the team to do it. Yes, we do it every month. So we spend 4 hours on a Friday every month and give the teams, and I told the teams, go wild. It can be anything that you want to build out. And oh my God, I'm so amazed and so proud of what the team has actually built out and delivered on. We have accelerated this over the last 4 months. Things have just moved on so quickly. So many things have gotten built out, and we are so close to putting into production a lot of those things. And so it's very, very exciting, not only for me, but also for them, because at some point, everything was just in a learning phase and things were not really tangible and getting started on. And with the hackathon, they actually got hands-on, and the hands-on, completely changed their mindset and the way they were thinking about things. And now, it's just become a normal part of their month is, okay, we're going to spend on this. Now, of course, they spend time outside of those 4 hours, but those 4 hours are really, really precious for them, and they utilize them really well.
Yeah, I spoke with Aniket, who, he built something during a hackathon, but, you can only build so much in 4 hours. but you could see that he was so passionate about it. He spent times in his evenings and weekends running forward with it because it energizes people so well. Those hackathons. I didn't realize it was every month, but so when did you start doing it? So we're now in October 2025. When did you start doing it every month? Was it
I would say
this year?
probably a couple of months now. It's been like
Okay.
about 3 months since we have done that.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, it's been like super, super exciting. Like I've always wanted to run hackathons more frequently because I feel hackathons is where people show their true, creation and innovation. And I've always wanted to do it like monthly. And this just turned out to be such a wonderful opportunity for us to, exploit. And so, I'm glad that we were able to do it. And yes, you have seen evidence of what that actually looked like. And it's just simply spectacular, right? What can be built out just in 4 hours.
Yeah, it's amazing. And also it's very energizing for them. So, okay. So you had a roadmap that then sort of got expanded as you were working with the team. So when you thought about the roadmap initially, what was it focused around? Can you share?
Yeah. So for me, when I started with the roadmap, I broke it out into three main sections. Obviously, now one thing I have to say is that for everything that you build on AI with and on data, you have to have a very solid data foundation. You have to have your data in place. You have to have your metrics clearly defined, and you have to have consistency in how these metrics are defined as well. And then, you can go and build AI on top of it, because while AI is intelligent, there is a lot it requires in terms of pure business context and in terms of business understanding, and your data needs to be organized for it to be able to get that and pull all of that together. So we had spent a lot of 2024 getting that foundation in place. Now, of course, that foundation was part of our broader data-driven enablement work stream. However, it served really well because AI kind of came right at the right place. And so we said that.
Mhm.
So once we had that foundation, I was like, hey, you know what the easiest thing would do is let's put GPT on top of these core data sets. Let's just pick up like 2 to 3 data sets and start putting GPTs on top of them and start asking questions of them. And so that became kind of the first piece of it. Like, what do we pick up as our core data sets? And when we started, I said, let's just do one table. Don't try to complicate with joins. Don't bring anything in. Everything is very denormalized. The columns are named really, really well. They indicate like what it actually contains from a business standpoint. So let's just start with that, see what that translates into. And, obviously we had trial and error in terms of like how to make that actually work for us. When you denormalize tables also, they become very wide. And so, there were complications in relation to that. So there was a lot that we underwent in that journey, but that was the first part of it. So that was essentially conversational intelligence that we wanted to add to our data itself. The goal of that specific bucket was essentially to improve like democratization of data within the organization. So while we set the data foundation, we began on a data literacy journey. But then that data literacy journey didn't go as well as I expected. So some of it was, I hadn't truly planned it well. But some of it was also the fact that, I had not made it simple enough for just pretty much anyone to come in and talk about it, right? So come AI, this now becomes so much more easier because people can ask the question in natural language, and it becomes a much easier way for people to interact and then understand what the data is trying to tell them. So that became like the first section. The second section we focused on was obviously, all the tools that we have in our tech stack, they are, bringing in their own AI capabilities. So I told the team, like, start pulling out the AI functions which you believe are totally taking away a lot of your time, and see if we can AI enable those functions. And so the team started looking at it from that standpoint. And so we identified the key AI features that we wanted in each of those tech stacks, and we made a roadmap out of it. So that was the second piece of it. The third one was the use cases. And so this is where, we wanted to build out AI workflows. So I have conversational intelligence, but then that by itself is not doing much. How do I make that intelligence basically a part of my workflow or embedded into workflows that the rest of the organization has? So, for example, if I'm doing list pulls, then what do I do with those list pulls? So, someone from marketing or sales takes that list and then they go and do an action with it. Can I make that a workflow, and can I make those happen? So the conversation started with the business to start understanding what and where those workflows were. And those became our use cases to build AI workflows. Now, the thought was like, I didn't want to scare people into thinking like, oh my God, we're going to replace their job just because now you're taking so much of this and automating them. So I said, everything will have human in the loop. You are going to decide as to what the metrics are, and we are going to very clearly define the path of this. So at this point, we said, no agents. Everything is just going to purely be where you define the goal, you define the path, you define the success criteria, you tell it when to stop and when to start. And, obviously add like governance and monitoring across all of it. And so we identified use cases, and which we are, of course, in the process of building out right now.
Mhm.
And then those use cases have now expanded into much, much broader use cases as we have started exploring and starting to understand as to what these conversational intelligence layers are giving us. So the conversational intelligence layers become the starting point for these AI workflows.
Amazing. Okay, so let me break it into multiple stages. 2024, we're focused, you in the data engineering team, et cetera, we're focused on organizing the data more, organizing the metrics, building the marts, starting to create tables that are less raw, less data lakey, and more marked, more cleaner to use. You went and ran this data literacy program across the organization. You were trying to get people who are maybe not as close to data normally to try to get them to use it more. Apparently there were challenges there in terms of rolling that out, but the work that was done from a data engineering perspective and a modeling perspective to support that was then helpful in creating those first instances of tables that could be used for AI. One of them is that really big, many, many, many columns. I think it was 400 columns, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Me? 400 columns. So doing that prep work to make it easier for AI, to our listeners, just so you know, our experience shows that AI struggles with joins. Maybe one or two joins, okay. But if you needed to join across 5 tables to get an answer, it is going to struggle. There are ways around that, but it's better to try to simplify things, create denormalized tables, for example, to help with that. Although on the other hand, a table with 400 columns has its own challenges, of course. So you created that, and then you started using various AI technologies to work with those denormalized tables. And then as those are starting to spin up, now then there's those workflows where one example you gave me in the past was think about a marketing campaign. So you start a marketing campaign, you want to evaluate the results, propose certain actions, and then take those actions. So instead of just having the data accessible in a chat mode, it would be a flow running through some no-code, low-code platform that would go pull the data, go through it, and then propose actions and really help the marketing person think. So those are 3 evolutions. Prepare your data, start with very simple tables that are really denormalized and wide, and then starting to incorporate into workflows that are not just, give me some data or pull some data, right? Is that a right way to think about the stages?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So now share with us a few things that didn't work out. Because that sounds great as a evolution, right? So you played with ChatGPT 2023, you got your team to start playing with it, and also you prepped the data, then you went through all the stages. So that sounds like a great stage by stage approach. What didn't go the way you want? What ended up being heartbreaks?
Oh, we had obviously a lot of heartbreaks. So as Yoni said, right, as we were set out to build our conversational intelligence layers, we had 3 ways in which to do it. So one was using one of the tools that was available that we use for our ML ops. We, of course, wanted to use what our data warehouse provides as intelligence as well. And then the third option was just custom build something with the ability to just access one of the LLMs and use that underlying. So we had those 3 options, and we played around with them a lot, and we hit a lot of roadblocks along the way. So one of the roadblocks obviously was the size of the table that we were actually looking to bring in. The reason why we chose that table first is it was the most cleanly defined, denormalized table that existed that kind of encompassed all the data that you would need for a specific function, and it would give you all the answers. So remember, joins are a little complicated when you do it when you put a GPT on top of it. And so we wanted to kind of take away all that complication and just make it very, very simple. And so we put everything possible there. So anyone can ask basically any kind of question. So there was obviously struggles in terms of just having that data set essentially loaded because it was so massive. So we had struggles essentially in just having that loaded and then going and basically querying against it. And so we use that, we had to go in, we had to hit larger GPUs, we had to take more compute and, just scale a little bit just so that it could bring that all into memory. The second this one we hit was in terms of cost. So just because of the fact that we were trying to have it all like load up and then, answer certain questions. And so we basically started hitting a lot on the cost side, and we are still kind of working through that to better understand as to how best to minimize on the cost footprint that we are seeing. And so we started saying that, okay, can we look at like the free models that exist over here versus, using something that is more a private model. And so we are basically essentially still exploring it. There are some limitations with the free ones that we have noticed. So, understandably, the private ones are more popular for a reason. So we hit those kind of roadblocks. We also hit roadblocks of where we realized that, and I wouldn't call it a roadblock. It was just if we had to think about the future itself, you need an interface where you can create all of this and it almost becomes like a single portal of entry that you can get to. And none of these were offering that unless there was a lot of work that went into building each of these. And I am excited to work with Yoni because I know Solid is going to offer us exactly that, something that we can do. And so that was one of the other things. So as we were exploring these tools, like each of these, while they worked for a certain thing, they broke for something else, or they didn't just it doesn't feel right. So we have kind of now, as I said, I'm excited to see, Solid is going to bring that all together for us. So I've taken out at least the problem statement of, where I need to see it all in a single portal so people can just come to one place and kind of click through to it. And we are focused now on seeing like how can we improve compute capacity. We have also added like role-based access. So essentially based on your role, you essentially have the ability to see as to what is the kind of output that you want to get. So someone very junior gets an output which is very appropriate to their role versus someone very senior gets a more summarized high level output. And so we have created kind of those distinctions. We have added a little more intelligence to the outputs that we are creating as well. So, not only does it just give a summary of the output, but then takes a little bit of a market recommendation or an external recommendation and says that, hey, if you really want to accelerate or improve this, then these are some ideas in which to do it. So there is some of those that are basically coming in. So these were the ones that we hit very specifically on the conversational intelligence piece of it. When we started exploring on the tech stack AI piece of it, again, that was by tech stack. Obviously, the AI tools are not cheap. And so each company, as you start to explore or exploit their AI capabilities, there is a cost associated with them. Not saying that we didn't consider that, but we had assumed that it was part of the license. But of course, there were additional costs to be made. So something to be very, very cautious about. These all add up. As fancy and awesome as they sound, they really, really add up. And so what we are doing is now, as we are looking at the roadmap, we are trying to say, okay, which ones are going to create the most efficiency. As part of the hackathon, my team has also built out like agents that a lot of the work that these tools claim to do. And they are like, hey, we can make this work and this is how you do it. So there's a lot that we are looking to see if we can explore those kind of things as well. But yeah, otherwise, so far it has been, as I said, it's just been a learning journey. Just be very, very patient with, how you go about this and provide the teams like full support and the ability for them to go and explore stuff as they want to. Of course, with using all the privacy and security guardrails. Okay, don't go crazy where you're now installing like all the AI that exists out there with the security and privacy guardrails, but give the teams the ability to kind of like really get hands-on and work on it to understand truly as to how they can exploit the magic that AI can potentially bring to the organization. I have yet to get to ROI. So that's like my next big exercise. But, once we have this stuff in production for a bit, I'll start understanding as to, what truly the ROI of these are. I haven't been able to fully measure those yet.
Do you have a sense of how you would measure ROI? Because to your point, AI can be very expensive, all the compute costs, the tokens and all that. And then of course, the providers layering their own profit margins on top of that. So costs are real. Any sense of how you would go about thinking about ROI on these solutions?
So each of these use cases has like their own ROI, their own impact that they are creating. So say, for example, I'm doing something which reduces the operational costs of my team. And when I say operational costs is, my team gets bugged for queries, ad hoc queries all the time. And there are some of those low-level ad hoc queries that can absolutely be addressed by the democratization of it through the conversational intelligence, right? Like you can have chats with your data and get the answers to those. So I'm hoping to compute and say, okay, how much of this reduces. And so my team can actually focus their time on the more high impact projects and not get boggled down by this. We are thinking in some of the workflows, which is very specifically around our data operations. I'm sure that everyone in this world doesn't enjoy doing operations work. And so we're looking to see how can we automate that process and, remove that burden out. So again, the team can focus on the heavy lifting that is required for the other projects as well. And so each of these we are computing either in terms of man hours or in terms of, the time it actually takes to sit down and break into this. There is some intangible cost also in terms of like context switching when you continuously get bugged and asked questions about certain things. So there is some intangible cost that will get added as well. But for each of these use cases, I'm considering that. For the workflows, it would be like, how are these each creating an impact on the bottom line? Like, are we creating like a true growth impact? Because if I'm providing you intelligence on a certain thing and running through this, then are we truly succeeding and able to do this in, I don't want to use the word record, but in record time as compared to, the long cycle of how things would go, or if people did not even know as to what to do with that data. So, when you look at data, only some people know immediately like, okay, this is what we can do with this. But some people don't know it. And so now if we show the data to them and propose an action, they are like, I didn't realize that we could actually use this for this. So there's an opportunity there for sure. And so we'll have to figure out the opportunity costs of that. But I'm hoping that those opportunity costs are like better for the bottom line.
Yeah. There's sort of like what I've seen are sort of like these pyramids of value when you bring in AI. So there's a very bottom value of, just like you were talking about at the beginning, ChatGPT helping me write emails, which is nice. And then there's the next level value on top of that is doing certain things a lot faster and better and higher quality. Those data pools that right now are wasting time for the data team and also wasting time for the person requesting the data pool because they could wait 2 weeks to get what they need. Now we're shortening that. So that's the second tier there in that pyramid. And then that top tier in the pyramid is where you're starting to do things that the organization couldn't do so far and creating a completely new level of impact, a new revenue. I spoke yesterday. I was at a Snowflake event and there was a guy there whose previous role was VP of Analytics. Now he's deeper into the data directly. And he said, as VP of Analytics, I was always bothered by the fact that I would get the data, but nothing that I could do with it. We get the data pool, but no insight. And I've started using AI to help me drive that insight. And the vision is somebody in marketing asks for a data pool, but instead of just getting the data pool, they get the insight that tells them, here's the data. This is what it says. This is what I recommend as the next steps. And people will be able to look at that and say, do I agree with the AI? Do I not agree with the AI? So that's kind of where that flow is. That's probably where the most business impact will eventually be. But you would need to track that, right? Because
yes,
you would need to see, okay, this is what people actually did with the data. This is what the workflows did, right? Is that the right direction?
That is the right direction. We have to see it, right? Because if something is not creating or generating impact, I'm paying a cost for all of this. And if it is not creating impact, then, we just chop it off. And we have to be smart about that, right? And it gives us the ability to fail fast. Yeah. So see if something has impact. If it has, awesome. If it doesn't, then let's move on to the next thing and let's get the next insight that comes out of it. The model also continues to learn based on these failures and it becomes better. With each failure, it's able to better understand, each of these things for sure. So yes, your point about, the metrics that we use is like speed to action and impact, like how quickly can we get someone to action? And that is the goal. And I know we didn't talk about this, but as I set my roadmap, I essentially created like my 3 core principles of the roadmap itself, which was more around, I call it my GET framework. And it's just around growth, effectiveness, and trust. And growth is basically, again, affecting and impacting bottom line. Effectiveness is how do we make individuals within organizations more effective at what they do, and while reducing the total cost of ownership. So I remind, like, I don't use efficiency, because efficiency is always around cutting costs. I
Yeah.
feel effectiveness is a friendlier term, and it is what AI is supposed to do. It's supposed to augment us. And then, of course, trust is like, how do we continue to maintain and build trust with all of this AI that we are building out? So for me, all of these core principles kind of tie into everything that we are building, and then everything that we are putting out. And so growth and revenue is, of course, and effectiveness is speed to action, and impact is the key metric that we look at and measure on each of these.
I like the distinction between efficiency and effectiveness, because also I think efficiency, it's hard to see that in the bottom line, right? Because if you were to say it's making the work more efficient, then a CFO or CEO would ask, okay, so, who are we letting go of,
Okay.
right? But that's not the point. The point is to make the people you have a lot more effective so they can bring a lot more value to the organization versus trying to figure out, who you could cut. So I think that distinction is very, very good. You talked a bit about the money for AI, the resources, et cetera. How do budgets work? Is there a budget that you are given to say, okay, play around with AI, or do the different business units provide their budget? Or is there like an experimental budget coming from the top down? How does that work exactly?
Not yet. All teams are exploring. And
Yeah.
so, each of the AI champions within their team are looking to see that what a potential budget could look like. So right now we are all working within our budgets and trying to see as to how best we can exploit it within the existing budget. And then I'm hoping at some point we will get a better sense that where we can make the investments. And it comes back again to the ROI piece of it. It's
Yeah.
so hard to understand the ROI till you have tested it out. It's almost like a chicken and egg solution, like chicken and egg
Yeah.
situation, unfortunately. Till you determine that, you don't know like how much truly should you push the envelope. I have like spoken to folks across other organizations, and they have invested in the tens and millions, and they have not got any ROI back. It's just
Wow.
an investment. And because if I don't trust anyone who says they have seen 10x and 100x performance improvement. Okay. I don't trust that at all. Maybe 1x, 2x makes sense, but X is like crazy. So, people have put in a lot and they have just not received it. And the impact then happens is on the resource. And so, we are playing it a little safer and saying, hey, you know what? Can we go and explore and exploit and then get an understanding of what the overall ROI is going to look like? And then go and say, okay, now we can make these larger investments because we believe that there is a use case for this. And this is the impact that the use case is going to create. The tools are not cheaper. The tools are pretty pricey too. And
Yeah.
so, those conversations that we have to be like with this in mind, absolutely, so that we can all move forward. But yes, all of that is being thought about as we think about like next year and the year beyond as to what should our investments look like. Because you have to give a number, right? Like you have to think of something and say like this is what it's going to look like. So it's going to be interesting till the point like how much of what we are predicting is actually going to come to fruition. And
Yeah, it's the whole world is doing these experiments right now. And I personally talk to a lot of people in the data and analytics space, and it feels like this global experimentation phase. People are setting up experiment. I think it is an important lesson that you're talking about, that instead of just pouring money at something and saying, okay, let's see, rather you're saying, let's experiment, try different things, and specifically let the team do it. Do the AI hackathons, 4 hours a month is about 2.5%, 2% of their time. So let them do 2% of their time for these hackathons, and people will get excited. So, they'll work around their normal workload to expand that. Those experiments will give us a feel for what is possible, where we can see value. We can imagine the ROI. Then we look at the costs, and then we say, okay, now for next year, let's budget for this. So we have a few use cases. The experiments look pretty good. Now we can budget for them and then roll them out. So it's a very conscious and sort of step-by-step approach versus just like, oh, let's open up a $10 million budget on this thing and see what happens. And then just, goes out the window, which we know some have done. Um, okay. So now let's think about 2026. You talked a bit about your roadmap and a bit about Get. So it's important for me to get there. Get there. What share some of that with us.
So 2026. So 2025 is going to be, as you clearly said, it's about experimentation, getting some stuff out there. 2026 is going to be like scale up. Start to invest in some tools. So for 100%, we are going to need tools that are going to help us with orchestration. Because we are going to have a whole bunch of AI workflows. We're going to have agents across the organization. You're going to need help with orchestration across all of that and some sort of management and monitoring of it in a much better way. While we can build all of that in-house, why take it when, there are tools that can basically do that really, really well. Obviously, Solid is something that I'm looking forward to because Solid is going to give us that portal into everything anyone wants to know about data, right? So not only is it helping with data discovery, but then it's going to extend into insights that we can get out of the data. We are going to have Solid provide its MCP. So, the workflows that I'm thinking about, which basically originate from the intelligence that we get out of the insights, that will essentially, become workflows that can affect actions on other applications or downstream applications. So that's a lot of what we are going to be building out. And then, of course, execution on a lot of these use cases. So 26 is going to be like the real world action of what 25 is doing a hackathon or experiment on.
Yeah. So essentially you'll pick towards the end of the year or maybe the beginning of 2026, you'll pick a few of these and you say, okay, this is what we're going to go from experiment to production use cases this year. Do you foresee the workflow for your team changing? So, some people maybe getting these items as official projects they need to work on, or hiring engineers that are focused on that. Like, how do you see your team sort of evolving in a situation where they need to now start building things around AI?
Yeah. So I'm thinking like next year, the distribution of effort, we do like a quarterly resource planning. So that resource planning is going to look a little different. I don't know what chunk of it is going to be like AI related projects versus not at this time, but I'm sure it's going to be a significant part, of the efforts itself. And so, yes, teams are going to be involved. In terms of hiring, I haven't thought through, whether that is going to change. My thought is like, can I make my existing engineers AI engineers too, right? Like, can I purpose and use the same things to build that efficiency in? So at this time, I don't think that I'm going to do it. And with the hackathons, the team has already proven that, they already have the skills and the skill sets. And just with a little more upskilling with, the orchestration tools, I'm sure that all of this should become relatively easy for them to kind of pick up on. The only thing I have to be very careful about is like how I'm going to resource them, because there is still going to be like the legacy. I don't want to call it legacy, older work. And then, you have this new fancy, amazing work that the whole world wants to just jump on. And so that distribution of work is obviously going to change, but I believe AI will take a big chunk of. I'm positive that organizations can find a way to use their folks itself to, build and extend on the knowledge that they have. Everything that AI does requires a lot of business knowledge and business context. And so as they think about it, that is the consideration they always have to have in mind. The AI is only so good as the business context and the information domain knowledge that you provide to it. Otherwise, it's just a technology.
Yeah, the semantics are really important also in there. I've met a lot of the members of your team, and they're very smart and they get it, and it's very obvious that they can, they pick up these things. So it makes sense to sort of upskill. I don't know if upskill because they are already skilled. Help, allow them to learn more and more and bring their own capabilities in there and using the existing team, because to your point, they understand the business context. They've already proved that they can get it and they can build things. And also, there's a lot of talk about what is AI going to do to us? What is AI going to do to our work? And part of what we say is that AI is not going to replace humans. Humans with AI will replace humans without AI. And so if your team starts adopting more and more of AI, they can take off tasks that AI will automate for them. And they become builders instead of just data pool and things like that. Also, yesterday, I listened to a guy called Ian from Ramp. He's the head of data at Ramp in a talk. And he said one of the things he noticed in his data team is that with the increase in AI related tools, his team became more generalist.
Yeah.
So he used to have data engineers, analytics engineers, ML engineers, and he noticed that his team started becoming more generalist. People who used to be ML engineers started touching the pipeline. People who were, data engineers started building models. And he noticed that people were just more fluid moving from place to place because I enabled them to do that. So it sounds like,
it
that
will. And I
impact
think
now.
that's what the world is moving towards right now. Like originally teams had to, we used to cross train so that people kind of knew this function and could do both functions, right? With AI, it's good to be full stack, but you're
Yes.
absolutely right. Like AI just allows you to, it just makes this process so much more easier, and allows people to step into the other person's shoes and do what they are able to do as well. So you're right. That's what it is going to look like. The team is going to be a team of everyone, like AI, whatever we want to call, whatever the second title is, but everyone is going to be some AI something.
Yeah. AI engineers, AI builders. It's exciting. I think it's fun. Building these things is a lot of fun. There's obviously the long tail of going from a demo to production, but people will figure that out as well. And some tooling will help. And to your point, we at Solid are very excited to be able to take part of that journey. I know we're almost up on time. So there's a few things I'm going to ask you that I ask at the end of every episode. Try to just answer whatever sort of comes to mind as I'm asking you these questions. I'm just pulling in another screen here. Okay. So AI tool you can't live without.
Oh my God. I hope the AI is not listening to me, but ChatGPT.
So you talked about where it was helping you in 2023. Where is it helping you today at the end of 2025?
I think it continues to help me in a similar way, just because of the fact that it now has a context of all my previous conversations. It is more intelligently answering me what it has. And so I have continued to use it, and I continue to kind of depend on it. It sucks in certain places, but for most part, I enjoy it because it knows exactly the kind of questions I'm asking. For my coding, I do a lot of vibe coding. And so for the vibe coding piece of it, Claude is the best. I haven't seen anything beat Claude at that. So I kind of partner with it, but I hope Claude is not listening. That ChatGPT is my favorite.
Yeah, there's I always say thank you and please to ChatGPT.
I do that too.
And I asked it once, like, hey, do you think I should say please and thank you to you? Is it going to be beneficial for me? And it sort of laughed and said, yeah, I've heard of that, of people saying please and thank you. It doesn't impact in any way, but it's always appreciated. So I'm like, okay,
it's always appreciated. Exactly. I say it always. You never know.
You never know. Yeah. They're going to take over. An AI myth you'd bust in one sentence.
The fact that if anyone thinks AI is trustworthy, if I think that is a myth. I had someone come up and tell me, I can make sure that whatever comes out of your AI tool is going to be 100% accurate. I said, no, there is no way you're going to be able to do that. And I said, even after I do everything, you're never going to get to 100%. And I think that's a myth that we are always going to live with. There's a disclaimer that is going to need to get added. And, I've told my team, AI is never going to be used for financial reporting.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's that's one thing 100% that it cannot do. There are certain things it does brilliantly and with accuracy, but when it comes to data, there's a lot underlying within data that exists, which, the AI may or may not have context about. And so I don't believe that 100% accuracy myth on AI exists. I don't believe that that's ever going to be true.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have a favorite book, podcast, or resource for builders in this space?
So my favorite podcast is the Artificial Intelligence Show. It's run by this guy, Paul Roetzer. And the reason why I like that show is because he talks about everything that's going on in AI. He is a very neutral person. He is not opinionated one way or the other. He just gives his take on things, which I find very, very interesting. But his podcast is the way I keep up with everything that is going on. The book I really love is The AI Driven Leader. And if you haven't read it, it's an absolute read. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I binge listened to it. So I walked a lot that day, and it's just simply amazing as a book itself. And then other than that, I basically subscribe to a whole bunch of newsletters. One of them being like TLDR, which I really like, and I enjoy the articles that they continue to send across to me. And I have a whole bunch of others. I should remember them, but they are really, really good. Substacks, I follow folks on Substack, and they give me a lot of knowledge. I'm trying to build a workflow so that everything Gemini kind of takes all my Substacks and then makes it like an intelligent thing for me to read very quickly. So I'm still working on that because I think I have way too many newsletters nowadays. But yes, these two, this book and this show, are like my absolute favorites.
Amazing. Yeah, I looked at the book now. It's by Jeff Woods, I see. So I'll order that. Probably also as an audiobook so I can listen.
Yeah, it's on Spotify. If you are a Spotify premium member, then Spotify Premium actually has this one. I hope he gives me some commission for all this sale I'm going to do for him.
Maybe he's listening. Or we send him the episode after.
Exactly.
And yeah, by the way, I also have some of the newsletters. So many Substacks, etc., they still have RSS feeds. So you can have them all flow into, in a low code, no code type situation, and then run Gemini through it. And I do the same thing because, reading all these things will take me forever, but Gemini coming in and saying, okay, this is what happened this week. And here are links also to things if you want to read more.
Exactly. That's what I do. Like the ones I'm more interested in, I will actually click through the link and read the whole thing. Yeah. But the rest of it, 3-line summary is good enough.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. One prediction for AI in the next 5 years, or if not prediction, you can say what you would want to see in the next 5 years.
Okay, this one's throwing me for a loop. It's funny because, this question came up in one of our offsites as well, in terms of like what the next 5 years would look like. And someone on my team actually said that, our warehouse will cease to exist. And I started thinking of a world in where that could possibly or potentially happen. I still have to come up with why anyone would do that, but never say never. But for me, 5 years down the line, I think we are living, I don't want to call this AI hype. I think we are just living in a world of chaos right now, which people truly don't know and understand as to what AI is capable of. And so they hear bits and pieces. And so, companies are laying people off like crazy, thinking that, hey, AI can replace stuff. I think within 5 years, all of this will settle down and AI and people will get to a point of at least a semblance of coexistence. And that will allow everyone to kind of do their jobs. I'm not saying AI won't be there, but it's going to be there in a place where, it's just going to make us very, very effective in how we work and how we do things. And so that's what I believe is going to happen 5 years down the line. I don't want to make any predictions in terms of technology because I think we are going in the right direction in terms of the technology itself. We just have to learn to become smarter in terms of how we are going to use it and how we want to use it. I think that's a key distinction that people have to know and understand. And if that happens, then, that perfect coexistence can actually occur. And I think 5 years down the line, that's what's going to happen. Everyone is going to come. This chaos is going to go away slowly, and that realization will come through.
Yeah, we can coexist with our AI. There was someone I met this week where in their organization, some AI agents now have employee IDs. They're treating them as humans. So it'll be interesting to see how that experiment goes. But they just started doing it, I think, a few months ago, if I recall correctly. And
the next time you talk, maybe, I'll be talking to Yoni avatar or something. I'm going to talk to your AI or something.
So one of these episodes in the future, I want to be the guest and my avatar of me to be the podcast host.
I would love to watch that one.
Yeah. I started thinking about it. There are ways to do that, but maybe a bit later on. But that's like something I imagine it would be really cool to be on the other side of this and myself sort of interviewing myself. So it'll be funny. Okay, so that was super interesting. Time flew by. I now realize just how much time has gone through. So this has been really, really interesting. And thank you for sharing this. I know this is very useful for so many people. Meenal, thank you very much for taking the time. And I look forward to continuing to work with you and your team of very, very smart people, going into 2026 and beyond.
Likewise, Yoni, thank you again so much for inviting me on the podcast. I even didn't realize how time flew. And this was such fun conversation. And I'm glad that I had an opportunity to speak with you on this.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for joining us, everyone. Remember to subscribe if you haven't yet, and see you at the next episode. Bye-bye.